Story 1. In the heart of a small town, nestled between aging buildings and forgotten streets, stood an old bowling alley. Its neon lights flickered like dying fireflies, casting eerie shadows that danced along the cracked pavement. Few dared to venture inside, for rumors whispered of a dark presence lurking within, the ghostly inhabitant of Lane 13. Legend had it that Lane 13 was cursed by the spirit of a former bowler whose life had ended tragically on that very lane. His name was Jacob Marlowe, a once promising talent whose dreams were shattered in a single, fateful game. It was a stormy night when a group of friends, oblivious to the tales of Lane 13, decided to seek shelter in the old bowling alley. Sarah, the adventurous leader of the group, convinced her friends that spending the night in the abandoned alley would be an exhilarating experience. As they stepped through the creaking doors, a chill swept over them, as if the building itself were alive and breathing. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of damp wood lingered in their nostrils. Sarah led her friends deeper into the alley, their footsteps echoing off the walls like distant whispers. They found themselves standing before Lane 13, its once vibrant boards now worn and faded. Sarah grinned mischievously as she picked up a bowling ball, her friends cheering her on as she took aim at the pins. But as she released the ball, a sudden gust of wind swept through the alley, sending a shiver down her spine. The ball rolled down the lane, its trajectory perfect, until it reached the end where Lane 13 lay in wait. Inexplicably, the ball veered off course, crashing into the gutter with a hollow thud. Confusion clouded Sarah's mind as she turned to her friends, but they were frozen in place, their faces pale with fear. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the alley, a haunting whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. "Leave this place," it moaned, "before it's too late." But Sarah, fueled by curiosity and defiance, refused to heed the warning. Ignoring the growing unease in her chest, she stepped up to the lane once more, determined to conquer whatever forces lay in wait. As she released the ball, a deafening roar filled the alley, shaking the very foundations of the building. The pins exploded into splinters, and Sarah stumbled back in shock, her heart pounding in her chest. In the chaos that followed, the lights flickered and died, plunging the alley into darkness. Panic gripped Sarah's friends as they stumbled blindly through the maze of lanes, their screams echoing off the walls. But Sarah, driven by a force she could not understand, felt herself drawn to Lane 13. With each step, the whispers grew louder, the shadows more sinister. And as she reached the end of the lane, she saw him, the ghostly figure of Jacob Marlowe, his eyes burning with an otherworldly fire. Trembling with fear, Sarah begged for mercy, but Jacob's spectral form remained unmoved. With a wave of his hand, he conjured a swirling vortex of darkness, pulling Sarah into its depths with a chilling laugh. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the old bowling alley stood silent once more, its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. And though the town would never forget the horrors that had unfolded within its walls, the legend of Lane 13 would live on, a cautionary tale for generations to come. Story 2. In the heart of a sleepy town, where the streets were empty by nightfall and the only sounds were the gentle hum of streetlights, stood an old bowling alley. Its faded sign, barely visible in the dim glow, read, "Midnight Lanes." Few ventured inside anymore, for the alley had gained a reputation for something far more sinister than just a place to knock down pins. It was on a particularly chilly autumn evening that a group of friends, unaware of the alley's dark history, decided to seek shelter from the cold within its walls. Among them were Alex, the thrill seeker, Emily, the skeptic, and Matt, the reluctant follower who went along with his friends' plans. As they pushed open the creaking door, a musty odor greeted them, tinged with something far more ominous lurking beneath. The interior was dimly lit, with fluorescent lights flickering overhead casting long shadows along the scuffed wooden floors. Ignoring the creeping unease in their hearts, the trio made their way to the nearest lane. Alex, eager to show off his skills, grabbed a bowling ball and stepped up to the lane, his friends watching with bated breath. With a practiced motion, Alex released the ball, sending it hurtling down the lane with precision. But as it reached the end, something inexplicable happened. The pins seemed to shiver, then right themselves, standing tall once more as if mocking Alex's attempt. Confusion clouded Alex's mind as he turned to his friends, but before he could speak, a voice echoed through the alley, low and guttural. "You dare disturb the peace of this place," it growled, "prepare for the consequences." Emily's eyes widened in horror as she recognized the voice. It couldn't be real, she thought, it must be some kind of prank. But as the lights overhead flickered and dimmed, she felt a chill creep down her spine. Suddenly, the air around them grew thick with a sense of dread, and the walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Matt's hands shook as he reached for his phone, desperate to shed some light on their situation, but the screen remained dark, as if drained of all power. With mounting fear, the trio stumbled away from the lane, their footsteps echoing off the walls like a death knell. But no matter where they turned, they found themselves trapped in a maze of dimly lit corridors, each one more foreboding than the last. As they pressed on, the temperature dropped, and the air grew heavy with the stench of decay. Shadows danced along the walls, their movements erratic and unsettling. And in the darkness, something watched them, something ancient and malevolent. With each passing moment, the sense of impending doom grew stronger, until finally, they reached a dead end. Before them stood a door, its surface marred with scratches and scorch marks. With trembling hands, Alex pushed it open, revealing a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their days. Inside the room, rows of bowling pins stood tall, their surfaces warped and twisted as if melted by some unseen force. And in the center of it all stood a figure, tall and imposing, its features obscured by shadow. As the figure stepped forward, Emily's blood ran cold. It was him, the ghost of a former bowler, cursed to wander the halls of midnight lanes for all eternity. His eyes burned with an otherworldly fire as he spoke, his voice a chilling whisper that seemed to echo through the very depths of their souls. "You have trespassed in my domain," he intoned, his words dripping with malice, "and now, you shall pay the price." With a wave of his hand, the figure summoned a swirling vortex of darkness, pulling the trio into its depths with a deafening roar. And as the darkness closed in around them, they knew that they would never escape the horrors of midnight lanes. And so, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the old bowling alley stood silent once more, its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. And though the town would never forget the night that three friends disappeared without a trace, the legend of midnight lanes would live on, a warning to all who dared to tread its haunted halls. Story 3. In the heart of a forgotten town, where the streets were lined with crumbling buildings and the air was heavy with the weight of the past, there stood an old bowling alley. Its once vibrant exterior had faded with time, and the neon lights that once beckoned patrons now flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows on the deserted streets. Locals spoke of the bowling alley in hushed tones, whispers of strange occurrences and unexplained disappearances circulating like ghosts in the night. But despite the warnings, there were still those who dared to enter its dilapidated halls, drawn by a curiosity they could not explain. Among them were Sarah and her friends, a group of thrill-seekers who reveled in the macabre. Ignoring the warnings of the townsfolk, they ventured into the alley one fateful evening, their laughter echoing off the empty walls as they pushed open the creaking door. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of stale beer and cigarette smoke, a relic of the alley's glory days. Sarah's friends scattered to explore, their footsteps echoing off the scuffed linoleum floors as they disappeared into the darkness. Alone now, Sarah made her way to the nearest lane, her heart pounding with excitement. She had always been drawn to the supernatural, and the thought of encountering something otherworldly sent a thrill coursing through her veins. As she stepped up to the lane, She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. But she pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. With a practiced motion, Sarah released the ball, sending it hurtling down the lane with a satisfying thud. But as it reached the end, something inexplicable happened. The pins seemed to wobble, then right themselves, standing tall once more as if defying Sarah's efforts. Confusion clouded Sarah's mind as she turned to her friends, but they were nowhere to be seen. Panic rising in her chest, she stumbled back from the lane, her eyes darting frantically around the dimly lit alley. And then she saw it. A figure lurking in the shadows, its features obscured by darkness. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she realized that she was not alone, that something sinister was watching her from the depths of the alley. With a trembling hand, Sarah reached for her phone, desperate for some semblance of light in the oppressive darkness. But as she fumbled with the device, the lights overhead flickered and died, plunging the alley into pitch-black darkness. Heart pounding, Sarah backed away from the lane, her footsteps echoing off the walls as she stumbled blindly through the maze of corridors. But no matter which way she turned, she found herself trapped in a labyrinth of shadows, her every move thwarted by an unseen force. And then, just when she thought she could go no further, she heard it. A low, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very walls themselves. Terror seized Sarah's heart as she realized that she was not alone, that something malevolent lurked in the darkness, waiting to claim her soul. With a scream, Sarah turned and ran, her footsteps echoing off the walls as she fled deeper into the bowels of the alley. But no matter how fast she ran, the darkness pursued her, its icy grip tightening with each passing moment. And then, just as Sarah's strength was about to give out, she saw it. A glimmer of light shining through a crack in the wall. With renewed hope, she threw herself towards it, her heart pounding in her chest as she pushed through the darkness. And then, at last, she emerged into the night air, gasping for breath as she collapsed onto the pavement. Behind her, the old bowling alley stood silent and still, its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time. But as Sarah looked back at the crumbling building, she knew that she would never forget the horrors that lurked within its walls, the darkness that threatened to consume her soul. And though she had escaped with her life, she knew that she would carry the memory of that fateful night with her forever, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the light. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment and turn on notifications if you enjoyed the video so you never miss an upload.